Hello, everyone. This is Joris Peels, and this is the first edition of the 3D Printing News Unpeeled. Well, all right, so I hope you can all hear me today, and this is a bit of an experiment. So we're going to be trying it for you today, and what we're going to be trying to do today is to get you a concise kind of update on the news and a concise uh, you know, uh, uh, kind of a succinct, concise analysis of what's going on in the news today. In 3D printing. And we're going to be trying to do that in a really relatively short amount of time. And the idea is to ultimately to do this. Well, if we can do this, we would like to do this every day. But this is very much an experiment and very much one of the hopefully a numerous series of these we're going to be doing every single day from now on. So we really love for you guys to just to essentially, give us feedback, let us know what we're doing wrong, what we're doing right, what worked, what didn't work, and and we'll shape it together with you into something that hopefully will be very useful for you. So I'm Joris Peels. I'm the executive editor of 3dprint.com, and we're going to be looking not only at our own news, but also news that other people generated or found or broke. And today we have 6 stories for you, and I'm going to be telling them from the least impactful overall, maybe it's something specific to one company, for example, to the one we think is the most impactful. So the news that might be, well, sometimes is obvious is going to be obvious. Other days, maybe it's something you haven't noticed. And it's something where we think the implications of this news are actually really very impactful. So, that's kind of what we're hoping to kind of like, to kind of get from you today, for you today. So, what we're going to be, what are we going to be judging these news stories on? Basically, essentially on what they're going to mean for the industry, what they mean for the future of the industry. Maybe something like a new standard for something. It could be kind of seem silly, but it could be very impactful. And something else is going to be maybe a little bit under the radar for a lot of you. So we hope that that'll be useful. So the 6th news story of the 6 news stories we have today is Castor now analyzes 2D PDF files. So Castor is a software that allows you to find essentially and kind of analyze, up till now 3D CAD drawings, and assess them on their 3D printability, what the cost would be on the 3D printed part, what the weight savings could be, that kind of thing. And what Castor now allows you to do is look at 2D files in PDF format as well, which is great because these are just the type of parts that for MRO, for maintenance and repair, you would really like to maybe look at. And these are the kind of parts that have been maybe really old, and these are just the type of parts that have been that are out of production, or that you know nothing of, or they're going to take you 6 months to make a casting of, or whatever, right? And so I think that's a really exciting move for Castor, and also for the whole kind of like 3D file analysis, discovery, CAD space. The 5th news item is Danish energy company Ørsted is 3D printing reefs. So the 3D printing reefs thing, I think also at 3dprint.com, we kind of laugh at this often because it's not really a great business case for 3D printing. A lot of these things can be made with casting or just conventional methods or molds or lots of different ways. So it's easy to laugh at this and just see that this is kind of a silly thing. But what Ørsted is doing Denmark's largest energy company. They're putting these 12 3D printed reef elements, about a meter by, I don't know, a meter by something like that. They look like they didn't really disclose to us, at least. And they're putting these in the water at a offshore wind farm. And their idea is to try to restore the juvenile cod population of that area by putting in more shelter for them. Now, we're never sure right now. I mean, I think ultimately it would make sense to 3D print these structures because you can customize them for the tides, for the type of thing you need, for the type of animal you're trying to protect, for maybe to try to give one animal an advantage in a particular area, for example. So we think that this is going to be a really exciting thing somewhere in the future. But we don't necessarily, we think it's more like, this isn't the most hugely impactful thing, but it's probably more impactful than we think it is going to be. So that's why that's why it's a number 5. And number 4, we have ASICS ActiveBreeze 3D slides go on sale. So the ActiveBreeze 3D slides are kind of like, it's a recovery slipper. So the idea is that for athletes, it's just like a slipper you wear after your run or after your training to help your feet recover. They're 3D printed honeycomb type of shape. They're $80. And the entire structure is made with additive manufacturing. some powder bed fusion or apologize, some vat polymerization process. They didn't really disclose what or which printer from whom, but one of these processes is being used to make it. Um, and they look cool. I tried to buy them. I couldn't buy them. They were sold out, which is kind of not the idea of 3D printing. Really, you could never sell out, right? That's the idea. But anyway, so they sold them out. It's nice to see ASICs also play in this space. We don't know who the vendor is of the material of the machine, like I said before. So it could be Carbon, maybe Henkel, Arkema's Next Dimension kind of formulations, maybe. It kind of looks like that. Those would be kind of materials or companies that could be involved here. Could be Origin as well, Stratasys Origin as well. So we don't really know. It kind of looks a bit Carbonish though from the software. It kind of looks style-wise. It does look a little bit like Carbon. Now, I love sandals. As the midsole application, 3D printing midsoles is going to be very expensive, and you still have to bond it to a lot of things. You still have to do a lot of assembly. So I don't really love that, right? But I love the idea of being able to 3D print individualized slippers, because with a slipper, we can print the whole thing, and we could make that for your individual foot, right? The sizing is one aspect. But what's much more important is we can make it for your individual way of walking, and we could really customize that to the specific voxel. So that really, really excites me. That's why ASICS is number 4. Number 3 is 43 million in VC funding for Boston microfabrication. So, killer round 4 right now. I mean, I think the first thing is to raise this much money at this moment when the whole world is being afraid of asking for money and let alone giving it, with inflation and all sorts of worries abounding everywhere. I think it's a great raise, right? So the money comes from Shenzhen Capital Group, which you may not have heard of. But they also have invested in Desktop Metal and Foreign Labs. So they're quite a lot of experience as a 3D printing investor. Now, Boston Microfabrication, also called BMF, has micro arch 3D printers that are being used mainly, like all the micro stuff, is mainly being used in medical device, electronics packaging, IC packaging, that kind of stuff. They use a projection micro stereolithography, PUSL. That's how it's written. And they use kind of like millimeter scale parts with micron level tolerances, which I think is the shortest description. I think we have that in the text of the article. And I think one thing is this is a huge market, nano and micro printing, and also just printing macro parts with micro features. It's just a gigantic market that can really change a lot of electronics, optics, and a lot of things like cell phone components and a lot of components that are being made in their billions. So this has a potentially huge impact. And we really, at the rest of the industry, never really talk or think enough about this. So that's, I think that's one thing that we really need to spend more time looking at the micro and the nano scale. Now, the other thing that I think is interesting is I'm not entirely sure if I would have taken the money if I'm BMF, right? So 43 million is really nice to have, especially now, but for a Chinese company would really, I don't know from now how sensitive everyone is. Maybe, people in the US government and people in the defense community where they're making a lot of sensors and electronics and things using micro nano printing, maybe they'll be a little bit more afraid of you now. I'm not so sure. I mean, it's not as easy as it was as a couple of years ago to say yes to money from overseas, especially if you do something that's on this kind of like the sensor and IoT kind of level. I think that's a kind of interesting thing to think about now. I think, outright ownership of Chinese investors is going to be a problem for a lot of people in the defense establishment. We're seeing that already. We're seeing a lot of backlash there in the U.S. and other countries. But, as investors, would you like Chinese investors? Or do you guys think it doesn't matter at all, right? Because it's an investor and they're not going to care and they don't want to look that deep under the hood. I'm not sure. I don't think I would have taken the money if there was another option out there, right? Okay, the other thing is, sorry, I'm sweating a little bit. Not that I'm nervous or anything. It's just that it's 40 degrees here in Spain, and it's very, very warm. I'm enjoying this. Don't worry. The other thing, the second news story that we think is the most important one so far is that Sika and Perry. Sika is a Swiss specialty chemicals company that specializes in chemicals and plastics and things for the building industry. And Perry is a formwork / construction company. Both of them, Sika and Perry, invested in Swiss construction startup Mesh. Now, why are we putting this on number 2, right? You might think of that like, whoa, wait a minute, who are these people? Why do I care, right? Now, first off, like Mesh is a 10-year long running ETH or ETH Zurich project, the university, like the MIT of Zurich or of Switzerland, essentially. And it's a robot arm metal printing project that is essentially 3D printing like a mesh structure, like a basket, essentially, that could be used either as formwork or to completely replace formwork. So you don't have to do that step at all, which will save you a ton of time and money, or to reinforce concrete structures, or to reinforce 3D printed concrete structures. And we love this because like it's going to save a lot of money. And the big problem for a lot of this 3D printed construction stuff was that, well, you were unable to make anything more multi-story, and in some cases you would have to make some formwork as well. And also, formwork is maybe not seen as sexy as 3D printed houses and all that kind of stuff, but we really think it's really exciting, especially for bridges and tunnels and really complicated building projects. Now, also, the interesting thing about Mesh is that it may actually let you get more design freedom than you used to have before, while saving money. So that's really exciting. I think it could be a real benefit to a lot of construction companies. And also, I think we want to point out here that the most logical thing here is that not that one printer prints your entire house, but that one printer will print your house, one printer will print the reinforcement, the other printer will print like polymer parts to maybe be some other parts of your house. So think of these printers working in combination to print certain structures. And again, the house is maybe even the most logical shape to print because we really need to optimize the cost and optimize the shape and the design freedom. So maybe it's very well be like, objects for a tunnel, which are things that rail tunnels, things like that have already been printed, or bridges. We have to, there's a lot of hype on 3D printing construction, but there's no tools, no ecosystem, there's nothing in place. And this is like everyone's 3D printing concrete, and these guys are doing, something extra, something more exciting. So that's really good, I think. The number one item of news that we have at the moment is, it's essentially Liebherr 3D printing parts for Airbus. Now, first off, this is, of course, technically going to be really, really challenging. I would hate to be a part of this. This is a very, very difficult thing to do. Secondly, I'm really obsessed with Liebherr as a company because it's a family-owned company that makes really good fridges, by the way, if you ever need a fridge, or giant cranes, should you need a giant crane, or excavators, like really, really big excavators for mines and things. And they also make landing gear for aircraft. So that's a bit of it looks like disparate things. It looks kind of like, well, it's all over the place, right? But we think it's a really exciting engineering company to be doing things with 3D printing. Now, Liebherr right now is doing actuator and valve components for the lower cargo door of the A350. Earlier in 2019, they did serial production of sensor brackets for the nose landing gear of the A350 XWB, or even earlier than that, they did a spoiler actuator valve block for the A380. So the company's building up quite a bit of experience, in addition to the experience done by Airbus itself and Premier, Aerotech, and AP Works as well. So that's very good that that Airbus is stimulating not only its own experience internally, but also through its suppliers and key partners. So I think that's a great development. The other thing is that I think it's hugely overlooked is this actuators, valves, and hydraulics. These are components that you can find in everywhere. And it's a really overlooked application. Maybe some of you have heard of Doman, which is my favorite startup in 3D printing, or you've heard of Hydro, which is a company that I love very much that Desktop Metal actually bought. Now, these are companies that are really doing some very, very exciting work on like reducing the mass, making the flow better, and also doing cost-competitive hydraulics and actuators when compared to mass manufactured ones or conventionally manufactured ones. So I think this is a really overlooked application that can really have a lot of legs, a lot of like future for us. And that's it, guys. That's kind of like the live cast for today. This is kind of the kind of thing we want to be doing for you guys. We want to keep it short. Right now, we've done about 15 minutes. So, first off, does anybody have any questions? And the other thing is, do you have any suggestions? Do you have any ideas of things we should be doing? First of all, the first thing is we could do many more news items. I could do 10, right? Or we could go more into depth with like the same amount of news items. Right, we could make it 15 minutes. My idea is you guys, rolling up to the office, you get a coffee, you just sit down with your coffee, and like 15 minutes of your day is like just boom, you know what's going on, right? That's my dream scenario here. But maybe you guys want more time, right? Or maybe you guys are thinking, no, Joris, 15 minutes. I don't have that. I'm like busy. I need, I need something snappier, right? And also, we just need to kind of say, we need feedback from you guys. More stories or more detail, right? That's the kind of thing we really want to do. Is there anybody that has a kind of a question right now? Any kind of a comment? Anything they want to know right now from me? Right? Okay. If not, then this is the review. So in summation, really quickly, what we discussed already. And feel free to come up with questions if you want. I'm available. Usually I'm really expensive, guys. So number 6 was Castor now analyzes 2D PDF files. Danish energy company Ørsted 3D printing and reef components, or 12 of them. Huh? We just need to say that. A6 is making its active reuse 3D slides going on sale, and immediately they're sold out. And $43 million raised for Boston Microfabrication. Congratulations to them. Number 2, Syrian Perry invests in Swiss construction startup Mesh AG to 3D print mesh or metal-based formwork replacement or reinforcements for the construction. And Liebherr is 3D printing parts for the Airbus A350. So that was it for today. Let us know if you have any kind of feedback, ideas, things we should be doing, things we should change. And the most important thing we're really about this now, and contact me directly if you want as well. Do we go longer? Do we go shorter? Do we go more in depth, or do we do more stories, or is this kind of what you guys are happy with? All right, guys. So thank you so much for today. And thank you so much. And I'll be back on Monday to try this again. All right. Thank you.